we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the Unit 7 test. Pass those back out and then retest for that. And then we're diving into new stuff. Chromebooks. Okay, number 1 is a solve problem. Okay, solve for x. So this is where you're getting x equals a number, like it's an equation. How do I know it's an equation? What does it have in there? Equal sign, okay? So the goal is to clean up the left side, clean up the right side, get x on one side, numbers on one side, okay? Long story short. So a lot of y'all were asking, does this 5 distribute to this guy over here? Why not? Exactly. There's a minus sign in between. So the 5, I'm actually just going to drop down for right now. You're distributing in a minus sign. Only you can think of that as like a -1. But it's just like the subtraction problem that we just did on our test. When you distribute in a minus sign, all the signs flip. So this positive 3x becomes a negative 3x. This negative 7 becomes a positive 7. On the other side, you've got another minus sign to distribute. The positive 2x becomes a negative. Positive becomes negative. And then this guy just drops down. Okay, they do that a lot on STAR tests. I see a lot of things that they'll put like a minus in between like that. And you got to know that that's 2 separate things. Just bring down the regular number, but distribute in that negative sign right there. Now, before we start moving sides, we need to check for our like terms, which I'm underlining on each side. And when I put those together, I'm going to get 5 and 7 combined to be 12 minus 3x equals -3 and -4 combined to be -7. And then my goal is to get x on one side and numbers on one side. Does it matter what side I move the x to? No, it's totally up to you. Which one did y'all move?
I'll move to the 2x to the
2x to the other side. Okay, so I do plus 2x here, plus 2x here. Green packet. Okay? And then I'm also going to, so that's going to knock that out. I'm going to also move the constant to the other side. So if I go x to the left, I need to go numbers to the right. So I'm going to do -12, and that's going to knock that out. So what's left? I'm running out of room. -3x plus 2x is what? -1x. -7 plus -12 is?
19.
-19. And then I don't want -x. So what do I got to do with that -1? Just divide it over. And so x equals +19. That's my solution right there. Okay, we're on page 2. All right, so solving. We've done this 100 million times, it feels like at this point.
To make x positive, you just divide it by itself?
How about -1?
Correct. I just divide it, just like if it was a 2x, you would divide by 2.
So if it was -2x, I would just divide by
-2x, yeah, whatever's in front of it. But you don't want -x, you want to have positive x. So if there is a negative in front of it, you're dividing by -1, which basically just changes the sign. Multiplying by -1 changes the sign. Dividing by -1 changes the sign. Okay? Okay, so question 2 says, state all possible outcomes of 2 numbers that can be multiplied to get 36. What that's called are finding the factors of 36. So all the pairs of numbers that when you times it by themselves, they give you a product of 36. Okay? This is going to be really important moving forward. We're about to start something where, like, this is the game we're going to be playing. Isa, you with me? Okay? So I got to think what number times another number gets me to 36. Well, let's start at 1. 1 times what gets you to times what gets you to 36? Okay, so 1 and 36. That's in your list. 1 and 36. Okay? There is. We'll talk about that later. Okay? All right. Is 36 even? So what's it also about to be divided by? Divisible by? 2. So let's divide 36 by 2. And I get what? 18. So 2 and 18 are another pair of factors to give me 36. Okay, what should I check next? 3. 36 divided by 3. Do I get a whole number? So 3 and 12 are factors. Let's check 4. 36 divided by 4. Oh, works again. So whenever I do division and I get a whole number, that means that Those two are going to be factors. 36 divided by 5. Do I get a whole number there?
No.
So is 5 a factor?
No.
So I just go to the next one. 36 divided by 6. Is that a factor?
Yeah.
Okay, so 6 times 6. 36. 36 divided by 7. No. 36 divided by 8. No. And then I already have a 9. So when you kind of like run into your list again, then you know you're done. So 1 and 36 are factors. 2 and 18 are factors. 3 and 12. 4 and 9. 6 and 6. 36 has a lot of factors. There's a lot of ways to get to that number. Some numbers are prime and it's only 1 in itself. Some numbers, just have a few factors. It just depends on what you got. But if it's even, it's always divisible by 2. If it ends in a 0 or a 5, it's divisible by 5. There's some kind of rules in there that you can remember. But if all else fails, just start doing what we did. 36 divided by 1, 36 divided by 2, 36 divided by 3, so on and so forth. And you only want whole numbers there. So we're going to be talking a lot about these factors in that vocab today. Okay? And then last thing, what does each term have in common?
Oh, they're all positive.
They're all positive. Okay. What else? Do they all have a variable? No, so they don't have that in common. Look at the coefficients. They're all whole numbers. They're all, what kind of numbers? Evens. So what are they all divisible by?
2.
They're all divisible by 2. Are they divisible by anything greater than that?
No.
No, because you have to start with the smallest number for that. So we can say they're all divisible by 2. Okay, that's the only thing they have in common. They don't have an x in common because this guy doesn't have one, but all of them are divisible by 2. That's like main idea of today's lesson. Okay? So before we move on to that, I do want to pass back your Unit 7 test. So let me just show you. I've kind of cleaned up Canvas a little bit. Get to your course. We're starting our next unit. It's not a very long unit. It's really like only one big idea. We're going to take a couple days on it because it is really, really important. So we've already done this week. I'm just keeping this up there for anybody that hasn't taken the test. So we've taken our test. It's 2 separate grades. They're graded. All of y'all taken it. And then we're going to start our unit today, which is over factoring. So we'll spend, again, a couple days. Really, most of the teaching is going to be this week. Next week's kind of more a practice, like tying up loose ends. We'll take a CFU. We'll have a review day, and then we'll have a test. So we're spending 2 weeks on essentially one skill because it is so very important. And if you don't believe me, Coach Holt and I do factoring and Algebra 2 every single day since October, and we are still doing it today, okay? So it's mega, mega, mega important. And it's just going to be a one-topic test. Now, some of y'all were asking about the retest. So the way we're going to do this, because this test is pretty short, we're going to wait and do retests at the end of class after Unit 8. So that way it gives you, again, this week and next week to kind of go in for tutorials, figure out whatever you need to do to be ready. But the retest is going to happen in class after Unit 8. So that means you're going to be responsible for knowing, stuff for Unit 8 as well as stuff for retests if you're taking it, okay? So next week will be a really big week for tutorials if you are retesting and then all of y'all are taking that test. So there's a plan for that. Let me go over Unit 7 real quick. Before we move on, if you are retesting, you need to be in tutorials. You've got to review your tests and make corrections. You've got to go through a reteach, and then we've got to make sure we have scheduled when that retest is happening, okay? I will be reminding you of this every single day, but it's on you. If you don't come get the check marks and do your stuff, then you don't get a retest. Too bad, so sad, okay? It's time to be responsible. Do we understand? Okay? And that retest is happening on the same day as your other test. So you've got to keep up with the current stuff and go back and relearn what you were supposed to already have learned. So it's a lot. Don't get stuck in this cycle, okay, of always being retesting and being behind. Can't do that. Okay, here we go. 8.1. Today's focus is on greatest common factor, and we are going to take it a little bit of an extension at the end, but we kind of need to know what it means when we say factor, greatest common factor, which I abbreviate all the time as GCF. And again, in Algebra 2, I say GCF every single day, okay? So we have to know what that is. There's a lot of words up here. This is just kind of vocab. But once I kind of explain what we're actually doing, I think it will make a little more sense, okay? It's a process that we've done before. We're just doing it backwards. That's all what factoring is just doing stuff backwards. So this is what we talked about on the warm-up. Numbers are expressions that we can multiply together to get a certain product. That is called a factor. So on the warm-up, on question 2, when we were listing all those numbers that multiply to be 36, we were listing their factors. These guys multiply 36. These guys multiply 36. Those are called factors, okay? The number in front of or being multiplied by a variable, the big number, what's the big number in front of a variable? We've been doing this since day 1. Coefficient. So kind of like in exponents when we would deal with the coefficients first and then we deal with the variables. That's kind of how we're going to approach these GCF problems. Is we're going to find our coefficient GCF, then we're going to find our variable GCF, and then we're going to do the steps. Okay? So the greatest common factor, again, is shortened GCF. It's where you divide out common factors. This includes variables and numbers that every term has in common. Let's add in, it says each, I'm going to write in, each term has in common. Okay? And you put it in front of the parentheses. Long story short, here is what we are doing today. Reverse distribute. We've done distributing all year long, haven't we? We've taken a number outside parentheses, and what do we do? What do we do when you distribute? You'll draw your little rainbow things, and then we multiply it in. Everything we're doing today is the opposite. We're going from something that's multiplied in, and we're going to write it as this times this. And instead of multiplying, we're going to divide. Now, the tricky thing about this is you've got to figure out what is it that they have in common. And that's where we really have to know our math facts, okay? And be able to do what I was doing on the calculator, okay? And dividing numbers and finding factors and things like that, okay? And again, right here, it says the GCF is the largest. This is just a definition. The largest factor between 2 or more numbers. So there's an example for you. And then we also can do GCFs with variables, okay? So when it comes to variables, you can have a greatest common factor with a variable as long as all the terms have a factor. So I'm not going to read all that to you. That's there. You can look at it. You can see some examples. I think really once we just jump into it, you will kind of catch on, okay? So let's look at number 1. We're going to work our way up, okay? Number 1. I always go to the side and kind of write what my GCF is. So again, I approach this 2 ways. First thing, I'm looking at the coefficients. Do the coefficients have something in common? If they do, I write down that number, okay? Now, I want you to listen to what I'm about to say and make sure this makes sense in your head. When I look at the coefficients on number 1, what do I have? Coefficient of what? 2 and 8. What is the smaller number there? 2. Okay, that means your GCF maxes out at 2. It cannot be bigger than the smallest number. Think about that. Your GCF can't be bigger than the smallest number. So you always start with the tiny, okay? With the smallest number. So our smallest number between those y'all just said was 2, right? Yeah. Is 2 divisible by 2? Yeah. Yes. Is 8 divisible by 2? Yes. So then our GCF is the number 2. Now we're going to look at the variables. My first term has a variable of x, but does my second term have a variable? Does not. So then I don't have a variable in common. Everything has to have the letter if you're going to take it out. So are we okay with the fact that this GCF is just the number 2? Yeah. Okay? So that means when I write my answer, my GCF's going to go in the front. So put a big 2 and open up parentheses. Since we're doing distributing backwards, we're now dividing. And what we're dividing by is that GCF. Sorry, it's kind of a small space. So I'm dividing by 2. What is 2x divided by 2? 1 what? 1. Do you have to write the 1? No. Okay. Plus, what is 8 divided by 2? 4. Close parentheses. This is your answer. You undistributed. If you were to go forwards, don't write it, just think it. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 4 is 8. So you see how we're doing it backwards? Everything we're about to do is going to be backwards for the next couple weeks. Okay? There's number 1. All right, number 2. Let's go over here. We're going to write what our GCF is over here. What's the coefficient of the first term over here? 1. What's the coefficient over here? Remember, you have to start with the smallest number. What's smaller between 1 and 4? 1. Okay? 1 is divisible by 1. 4 is divisible by 1. What GCF number do you have? 1. Now, do we really have to write a 1? No. Let's just write it for now, but we're not going to put it in our final answer. But we checked for it, okay? So if you have a coefficient of 1 anywhere, that's always going to be the smallest, all right? And you're not looking at positive, negative. You're just looking at the number itself. Now I got to check the letters, okay? The letters actually, I think, are easier to find GCFs of if you know when they have one. Do both of your terms have an X in them? Yes, so that means I can take out an X. Now, here's the rule. With variables, the GCF will always be the smallest exponent. So what is the first X's exponent? 2. What is the second X's exponent?
1.
1. What's smaller between 2 and 1?
1.
So you're taking out X to the 1, okay? So if they all have to have a letter, which they do, and you just take out the lowest letter, okay? So when I take my GCF, I put it in the front. So I'm going to put a X, because you can write 1X to the 1, but we really don't have to, okay? It's typically more simplified to just put X. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to divide each of my terms by that GCF, like that, okay? And you'll probably get to where you don't have to write the division, but for today, it's day 1. Let's go ahead and look at it. So here, this is kind of the extent of our exponent rules that we're going to be doing from here on out. You've got 2 X's versus 1 X. Who's going to win? Top or bottom?
Bottom. Wait, no, top.
By?
By 1.
1. So you're going to have X to the 1 in there. Okay? Because what's X times X? No. What's X times X? X squared. Okay? Plus, all right, 4X divided by X. What happens with your X's here? Who wins tug of war?
No one.
Why no one?
It's a tie.
It's a tie. Because it's 1X on the top and 1X on the bottom. Now, you have to account for the 4. So when the X's drop out, they become 1. And you have 4 times 1, which is 4. Okay? Now check it. Go forwards. X times X is X squared. X times 4 is 4X. So I did it right. This is my answer.
That's pretty easy.
It's not too bad. Okay? Can get worse. All right, let's do number 3. Let's check here. All right, what kind of polynomial do I have on number 3? How many terms are there? 3. Trinomial. Okay, we're still doing the same thing. But we got to look at 3 things. We start with the coefficients. Look at the numbers. What's the smallest of the coefficients? 2, 6, and 12. So I always start with the smallest. Is 2 divisible by 2? Is 6 divisible by 2? 12 divisible by 2? So my GCF number is 2. Do they all have an X?
No.
So can I take one out?
No.
No. So bring out the 2. You got a little more space here. Open up a parentheses and go here and just divide all the terms by 2. Okay? And then write what's left over. You should have 3 terms. 2x squared divided by 2 is?
X2.
X squared. 1x squared. 6x divided by 2 is?
20X.
Minus 12 divided by 2 is?
Negative 6. Or 6. Positive.
No, it's not positive.
Okay,
It'll be,
It is negative.
yeah, you're right. And now you're done. Boom, boom.
I said negative, then I went positive.
I sometimes, I just brought the sign down, but it is good to be able to think about it with negatives because we're going to have a negative right here. Okay? Let's check number 4. GCF. Okay. For a second, we're going to ignore those negative signs. For a second. Let's just look at the coefficients. Okay? Ignoring the signs for a minute. 6, 10, and 8. What's the smallest number?
6.
6. Okay, so 6 is divisible by 6, right? Oops,
Yeah.
6 divided by 6. Is 10 divisible by 6?
Yeah. Wait, no.
No. So can 6 be our GCF? No. So if 6 doesn't work, that's the smallest number. I got to work my way down. What's the next factor of 6? And we got to work down.
Oh.
3, okay? Because 2 times 3 is 6. So 6 is divisible by 3. Is 10 divisible by 3? No. So I checked 3. What's my next factor? 2. Okay. 6 is divisible by 2. Is 10 divisible by 2? Is 8 divisible by 2? So my GCF has got to be 2. So do y'all see how if it's not the smallest number, you just kind of work your way down, okay? What's the next that it could be? What's the next that it could be? Now, let's talk about the sign. So let's go ahead and put a 2 right here for our GCF. So we're kind of picky in algebra, us algebra teachers. You see how my first term has a negative in the front? I don't really like to have that, okay? So if the front guy, this is the only time I want you to do this, is if the first guy is negative. Let's take out a negative number. So instead of just a 2, let's take out a negative 2. This isn't super common, but I did want to show that it is possible, and it's really only when that first guy's negative. We just don't like that. We don't like the first guy to be negative. We want to be positive. Okay? So that's the number, GCF, I'm going to take out. Now I got to check for letters. Okay? Daniel, do they all have an X? They all do. So can I take one out?
Yes.
Which one am I going to take out, Issa?
8.
No, letter. It's the smallest exponent. So x to the 3, x to the 2, x to the...
1.
So what's the smallest exponent of x?
1.
So I'm going to take out x to the 1. Okay, do you have to write the 1? No. Okay, bless you.
Thank you.
So put your negative 2x GCF in the front. And y'all don't forget, do not forget, you have to put that GCF there. I'll draw an arrow for it actually on here so you can kind of see. Your GCFs go in the front. And then we divide everything by that GCF. And again, it is a negative 2x. Okay? What's a negative divided by a negative?
Positive.
So negative 6 over negative 2, what number is that going to give me?
Positive.
Positive 3. Now let's look at the x's. You got 3 on top. You're dividing by 1. It's like you're taking 1 out. How many are left?
Oh, 2.
X squared. Okay, y'all see you got that subtraction. 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay, watch the signs here. This is a negative 10x divided by negative 2x. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 is positive 5. 2x's divided by 1x is x. Okay, it's like you're removing 1. And then 8, positive 8 divided by negative 2 is, and then you got 1x, you're taking 1 out, so what happens?
No more X.
No more x on that one. Okay, so it all goes back to it being a division, but I think you'll probably kind of catch on, especially when it comes to taking out variables, what that looks like. Okay? All right. Do we feel scared by 5 or 6? Oh, really? Good. Good. These are 5 and 6 are ones that again I've seen on the STAR test.
Wait, I'm scared.
Yeah, I think they're kind of scary, but we're gonna knock them out. We're gonna handle it. Okay. Moving forward, hear me out. 5 and 6 we put on here because we did find a STAR question from a few years ago that put one question in like 5 years of tests. Okay. So we wanted to just show it. Might kind of pop up in the practice and stuff, but as far as taking out GCFs, your work's going to be more like the first 4, but we just kind of want to expose you to this. It's not too bad. We're going to go about it the same way that we did. We're going to check the coefficients, we're going to check the letters, and we're just going to go one at a time, okay? So let's make a little list, our GCF. I always like to write that to the side, okay? All right, compare the numbers. What are my coefficients, Miles? Tell me. 5.
7 and 11.
Okay, so Zane, what's the smallest one?
Definitely the 5.
Definitely the 5, okay? Is 7 divisible by 5?
No.
So can 5 be my GCF?
No.
What's the only other factor of 5?
2. Oh, no, 1.
1. Is 5 a prime number?
No.
Yes.
Wait, yeah, my bad.
Yeah, because the only way to get to 5 is to multiply.
They're all
Prime?
prime numbers.
All of these are, yes. The only way, a prime number is the only factors are 1 in itself. So the only way to get to 5 is 1 times 5. Like, there's nothing else that works. Miles pointed out 7 is prime, so is 11. Okay, so is there a GCF other than the number 1?
No.
No. Do we have to write down a number 1? No. So we're not going to take out an actual numeric GCF in this problem. Are we okay with that? When they're all prime, that's all you can do. Okay? All right, let's look at the variable g. Does every single term have a g?
Yes.
Here's a g, here's a g, here's a g. So can I take out a g?
Yes.
Yes, I can. Now I'm going to take out the lowest exponent. This is a g squared. This is a g to the 1. This is a g to the 2. What's the lowest? G to the 1. Now look at the h. Do they all have an h?
No.
So can I take that out?
No.
So the only thing I'm doing is just taking out the variable g. Is that weird? Yeah. But can I handle it? Yes. Where does your GCF go?
Go on.
No. It's in the... Goes in the front. It's not just gone. You have to put it out in the front. You're dividing it out. And now I'm going to take each of these terms and divide by g. And it's actually going to be a little bit easier than it looks. 5's going to come down because I'm not changing the 5. All right, battle of the g's. 2 versus 1. How many are left? 1. What's h going to do? Drop down. Because you're not doing anything with h. Plus, Nick, you got it? Let's do it. What happens with the 7? Does it divide by anything?
No.
So 7 comes down. G versus G. What's going to happen with those?
Cancel out.
They cancel out.
And then it's just H.
H to the 3rd drops. Plus, Ethan, what's going to happen with the 11?
It just stays the same.
Stays the same. What's going to happen with G2 divided by G?
Oh wait, no, G to the 1.
Very good. So was that bad? It looked kind of crazy. And the answer, honestly, looks still crazy. But that's all we had to do. Okay? All right, 6 has got a little bit more. Let's talk about 6, and we'll take a very, very short brain break. Okay, and move on to bigger and better things. All right, we got to compare the coefficients. Cruz, what are my coefficients?
42 and 12.
42 and 12. Which one's smaller? 12. Okay, so let's start with that. We know 12 is divisible by 12, right? We don't need to check that, do we?
42 is
Hopefully
not. 12.
42 is not divisible by 12.
I said 2.
Okay? Well, here's the thing. What kind of common factor is it? What does the G stand for in GCF? Greatest. Okay? So you may be able to find a common factor. If you notice, hey, these are both even, yeah, they have a common factor, but you want to find the greatest. Okay? So let's talk about 12 over here. I'm going to make a list just like I did. What'd you say next? So 12 doesn't work. What's the next factor of 12? 6. Because you try like 12 divided by 2 and try that next number. Okay, 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 12 is divisible by 6. Is 42 divisible by 6?
Yeah.
So then our greatest, and again, not back to not just a common factor, we want the greatest common factor, which is going to be a 6. Okay?
We just pick out a number.
We didn't just pick out a number, no. We picked out a number that goes into both.
All right, let's go letters. Do they both have a B?
Yeah.
Okay, Muhammad, what's my lower power of B?
Greatest one that goes into both of the numbers.
B to the 1, which is just B. Okay?
So 12 is-
Do they both have a C? Can you take that out? Do they both have an A?
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're trying to do.
So can you take that out? So here's your GCF, 6B. Put it in the front.
That GCF, 6B.
Divide them by 6B. Oh, that's a 6.
I was thinking 1.
So they both have a B?
That would be 1.
You think that was easiest?
Yeah.
6.
All right, Daniel's helping. What did you get? You said 42 divided by 6 is 7. B to the 1. Do you have to put to the 1? No. And then what else? C is going to drop. Minus. Isa, 12 divided by 6? 2. A just drops. What happens with your B's?
Drops. Wait, no, they can't.
They cancel out. They simplify to 1 for all the powers that be. Okay? All right, so again, 5 and 6, aren't going to be as prevalent as we move on in our stuff, but it is good to be able to do. Okay, let's do a 2-minute brain break.
2 minutes.
Here we go. Here's main idea of today. Okay, I want you to keep in mind,
The main idea
we are still going to be doing the exact same thing we did on the other page. However, we're going to be doing it times 2. Okay? Okay.
there's a lot
So
of
here we go. We're not going to freak. Not going to freak.
I'm gonna freak.
Stay with me. Okay. So how do we find the greatest common factor when it looks something like this? Now, here's what I need you to understand. If we can get through problems like this today, there's only one new thing next class. It's going to keep building. Okay? So we're like 2/3 of the way there just after today's lesson. So I want you to notice, how many terms do I have on this first example? 1, 2, count with me, 3, 4. 4 terms, okay? So if we have a polynomial that is written in 4 terms, then we can do this process, which is called grouping, okay? And basically all it is we are going to group the problem, and we're going to do 2 GCF problems in one, okay? I'm going to put a sticky note up, and I'm going to show you how this is literally becoming one of the problems we did on the other side, and then we're going to look at the other side and see another one, okay? So it's not that much more work, but it is a little bit more, okay? So here we go. So do you see how they grouped them? They put parentheses around the first 2 and parentheses around the second 2. Yes? Mm-hmm. Yes? Okay. So then here's what they did next. Find the GCF of each group. So I'm focusing on this first group. I covered up the other side. X squared plus 7x. What is the GCF of that? Numeric-wise, 1 and 7. Can you take out a GCF if you have a coefficient of 1 somewhere? What's the smallest number? 1. Do we have to write a 1? No, bless you. Okay, so I'm not going to write an actual 1. But what's the GCF between x squared and x? Do they both have an x? Miles, do they both have an x?
Yes.
What is the smaller power?
X squared.
Smaller.
The X.
Just the x. So what's the GCF here? X. So where do GCFs go? On the front. And then we're going to open up and we're going to divide it out. Okay? What's x squared divided by x? X. What's 7 divided by x?
With 7x.
No, 7 divided by x.
That's definitely. So x equals 1.
No. It's x to the power of 1. Look, think about it like this. You had 2 x's originally. You took 1 out. You're left with x. You have 7 times x. You take the x out. You're left with 7. It's the same process from the other side. Brayden, zone in. Okay? Now, I'm going to move my sticky note. And I'm going to look at my second group right here. Positive 4x and 28. I need to find the GCF of that. What's the smaller number? 4. Is 28 divisible by 4? Yes. And what sign is right here? What kind of 4 is this? So we have to put a positive sign when we do this grouping process. Okay? Can we take out an x of this group?
No.
Why not?
Because one
One has
has an X, one doesn't.
an x and one doesn't. So take out a positive 4. What's left? 4x divided by 4 is
1.
1x. 28 divided by 4 is 7. No x, just 7. Okay? So at this point, again, I'm kind of covering up. I know you have this already worked out on here, but I'm covering up mine. I want you to look at mine. Okay? All we did was GCF this guy and GCF this guy. Okay? And you're going to start to see a pattern with these. They're actually not terrible GCFs usually. But here's the big idea. I want to point out something to you. I'm about to highlight something. Both sets of parentheses. What are they both? X plus 7. Okay? And I'm going to circle something right here. What did I circle? Those two. The GCFs in the front. Okay. Here's how we actually write this in factored form. And then I'm going to show you something even cooler. Okay? The second parentheses that matches, those should always match. If they don't match, you've made a mistake. Are you with me? Okay? So the second parentheses, I'm going to write that for my final answer. I'm going to draw an arrow over here. I'm going to write that matching parentheses, lies. I'm actually going to write the two that I circled, the GCFs. I'm going to merge those together. So that would be a X plus 4. I'm going to do it like that. And then I'm going to write the matching parentheses second, X plus 7. And this is my final answer here. And I'm going to box that. Okay? So what matches, you write it once, the GCFs in front, you merge together. Okay? So here's what I want to show you. We started with no parentheses for terms. How did we finish? We started and we finished. What did we finish as? What times a what? Correct. Vocab word. What is this called? 2 terms times 2 terms. A binomial times a binomial. Okay? Do you want to know what you did on your last test? Your last test, I gave you, don't write this, just look. I gave you this problem. A binomial times a binomial. And what did you do on your last test?
Oh, I did the divide.
Take out the first numbers.
Yeah, I split it.
You split it, and it became X plus 4. X plus 4. And then what'd you do here? You wrote it twice. X plus 7. So that's why these guys have to match, is because this is what it is originally. When you split it apart and you double distribute, guess what you ended up getting? X squared plus 7x plus 4x plus 28. Backwards. Isn't that cool? I expect an applause. Why are we not clapping about this? Okay? So that's how we're doing everything backwards like that. That's the process, okay? So I know there's a lot of parentheses and arrows. This is just to kind of get our brains flowing. We're going to drop all that eventually and be able to do this on our own, all right? But here's the big idea. That's what we got, okay? So let's look at number 1. We'll do this one that's not worked out. 4 terms. This is the process when it's in. How many terms? Put up a 4. Put up a 4. Okay, here we go. And we're going to group them. So let's put the first 2. X squared minus 6x. You don't even need to rearrange anything. Just literally the first 2 and then the second 2. So Brayden, what's going to go in my second parentheses right here?
3x minus 8.
And what did I write in front of my 3x? Plus. I want you to include that sign. Okay? Okay. So one at a time. Let's focus on x squared minus 6x. Again, I'm covering up half the problem. You can do that with your hand, so that way it doesn't overwhelm you. What can I take out? What do they have in common? Well, look at the numbers. 1 and 6. What's the smaller number? 1. Does taking out a 1 do anything? No. Okay? X squared versus x. Do they have something in common? X squared versus x. Do they have something in common? X. So where does it go? In the front. Y'all, every single time you do this, the first group, you are able to take out an x. Every single time. Because it's always going to be an x squared and a something x. So when I take out my 1x, what's going to be left in here? X minus, take out the x. What's left in here?
6.
Very good. Okay. Other side. The second group, are we going to be able to take out an x ever?
No.
Because does this last guy have one? No. So, pay attention to the sign. This third term is positive, so I'm taking out a positive. I have to have a sign there. You have to. In that second one. Now, what's the smaller number, Nick? 3 or 18?
3.
Is 18 divisible by 3?
Yes.
Yes, so my GCF is 3. Now, if I divide out a 3, what's left over?
1.
1 what?
1x.
Or just x. Minus 18 divided by 3 is? All right, now look at it. Do they match? The parentheses, do they match?
Yeah.
That's what we call our common factor. I'm going to write that second. X minus 6. And then the GCFs in the front, I always circle mine. I'm going to merge those back together. And that would be x plus 3. And these are my GCFs, if you want to label those. Now, technically with factoring, it really doesn't matter what order you put first, but let's just kind of keep consistent while we're still working on this, while we're learning this, and then go from there. Okay? So that's the process. You group it, you work one GCF problem, you work the other, and then you put it together. Okay? The first group will always have an X to take out. The second group will only be a number. Okay? I want you to try number 2. Try number 2. Here we go. Group. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. So group them. 2x squared minus x plus 10x minus 5. Then I'm going to GCF each group. What can I take out of 2x squared minus x? What's my GCF there? Just an x, because my coefficients are 2 and 1, so I can't take anything out there. So what's left in?
2x.
2x minus,
Oh, minus x. No, minus. Just has
So
to.
if they match, then that means
Huh?
you're correct.
you're on the right track. What is, okay, if you have an x and you take it out, what's left right here?
I know that.
What do we put when there's a tie? We put a 1. You have to put that number though, okay? So 2x minus 1 is right there, all right? That's the harder GCF.
Wait. What about the square above the first?
So the squared was,
I think I can.
you were dividing x squared by x, and so that's why you ended up with just an x in here. Because look, multiply it back in. X times 2x is 2x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. You can kind of multiply it back in. Okay? All right, 10x minus 5. What kind of number is the 10? So I have to take out a positive. 10x minus 5, what do they have in common?
Nothing. Oh, they both.
Plus 5.
What's the GCF with them? 5. Because 10 is divisible by 5. What is 10x divided by 5?
2.
2x. What is negative 5 divided by 5?
-1.
Okay, do we match?
Hold on.
I think so.
I looked away for 5 seconds and we did the whole thing.
Not the whole thing.
Okay, it was longer than 5 seconds that you were looking then. Do they match?
Yep.
Yep. GCFs in front. Merge those. So what's my first factor? I'm using a vocab word right here. My answers are called factors. So what's one of them? What's the GCFs merged to be?
X plus 5?
X plus 5. That is a factor. Factors go in. Look at me. What do they go in? Parentheses. What's the matching factor?
4x.
No. You only write it one time. 2x minus 1. So this is your answers right here. Okay? Let's try 4.
Or use the restroom real quick.
No.
Wow.
Okay? All right. We took all the space out. We took all the stuff out. Now we're going to go through number 4. We're going to go through 4 and 3, and then there's practice on the next page. Okay? All right. I want to do 4 first, though, because we haven't seen one like this yet. As far as grouping, I sometimes, when I don't have all the parentheses set up, I don't like to rewrite things a million times. So sometimes I do this. This is my first group here, and this is my second group here. Y'all okay if I kind of skip or rewrite?
Yeah.
Are we okay with that? Sometimes I also like less parentheses. Do what?
The positive tone to negative tone.
No, we're not going to change that right now. We're going to leave it like this. Okay, all right. So my first group is 6x squared minus 21x. Hey, heads up. We've got 2 problems left to do together, and then you've got problems on your own. So get focused. Okay? 6x squared minus 21x. All right, compare the numbers. 6 and 21. What's the smaller number?
6.
6. Is 21 divisible by 6?
No.
No. 21 divided by 6, oops, doesn't work. All right, what's the next factor of 6? Work your way down.
3.
What's 6 divided by 2? 3. So 6 is divisible by 3. Is 21 divisible by 3?
Yeah.
So then what's our GCF?
3.
3. Now, the first group, what did I say? You can always take out the first group. In X. Every time. You hear that? I just said every. Always. This is not something that we say a lot in math. But on these problems, the first group, you can always take out an X. But also a 3. So what's left if I divide 6x squared by 3x? 6 divided by 3 is? 2. Got 2 x's, take 1 out, left with?
Next one.
1. Negative 21 divided by 3 is?
Negative 7.
Okay. You got 1 x, you take it out. Is there an x there anymore? Close it off.
How do we get 2x?
6 divided by 3 is 2.
Oh.
21 divided by 3 is 7.
Okay.
Okay, so you're always doing the division with the big numbers. The subtraction is with the x's. All right, my next group. Again, cover up the other side. What kind of 8 is right here? So what kind of number am I going to take out? A negative. Every single time, y'all got to pay attention to that sign. It's going to be a negative if this guy's a negative, a positive if it's a positive. Okay, we're comparing 8 and 28. Remember, the second group, you can never take out an x. It's just a number. What's the smaller number between 8 and 28? It's a smaller number between 8 and 28. 8. Is 28 divisible by 8? No, I got a decimal. I tried it, but I got a decimal. So what's my next factor?
7.
Try 4.
4. Okay, 8 is divisible by 4. Is 28 divisible by 4? There it is. Now be careful right here. You're dividing by a negative 4. What is negative 8 divided by negative 4?
Negative 2. No, positive 2.
Positive 2. Drop down the x. What is positive 28 divided by negative 4?
Something.
Okay. Check them out.
Does it match?
Do they match?
Yeah.
How many times do you have to write that?
Twice.
No.
Forward.
Just write it once.
No, you just write it once. Remember, we're going backwards now. You put them together and you only write it one time. Now, what are the GCFs in the front? And so we merge those.
Yeah.
I just want to, this is your factors. If you had a multiple choice, it is technically okay if you write the matching factor first and the GCF second. It's still the same thing. Because technically when we factor, we're finding a multiplication. And multiplication is commutative. You know what that means?
Nope.
What's 5 times 2?
10.
What's 2 times 5?
10.
So either way it works.
Doesn't
Okay?
matter how you write it.
Doesn't matter how you write it. Okay? All right, last one I'm going to do with you, and that's practice time. Okay? This one, something kind of cool happens here. So let's go ahead and, are we in 4 terms?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Remember, I changed my group to do a little underline thing, just to save us some space. So underline, underline. Last problem. Get with me. Then we'll start the bathroom line. But you got homework. Okay? Let's look at the first group. First group, we can always take out a X. Can we take out a number here? We've got 1 versus 6, y'all. If there's a coefficient of 1, can you take out a number in the first group?
No.
No, we're not going to have that there. So X, parentheses. What's going to be left in?
1 minus 6x.
No, I have 2 X's there, and I took 1 out.
1
Oh, yeah.
1
Oh,
X
1x.
minus,
Minus
6 squared.
no,
6.
Six.
just 6. You took the X away from it, so it's just a 6.
We're just dividing by X, right? I mean, all we're doing is dividing by X.
Okay. Next group. What kind of number are we going to take? The sign, the sign, the sign. Read the sign, read the sign. We're going to take out a negative. Okay. Only a number. Cannot take out an X because does 36 have one? No. So what number is divisible by 6 and 36? 6. And you're left with 1x, or just x. What's 36 divided by negative 6? Okay. Do they match?
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm going to write that how many times?
One.
1 time. And then my GCF's in front.
X plus
It's another
It's another x minus
Can you put
6.
can you swap can you put the first one? Can I put X minus 6 in front of it? It's the same exact thing.
Okay. I kind of like where you're going now. Because they are the same exact thing, can I do this?
Yes.
What does that exponent mean?
They're the same. They're the two.
Multiply what's in the parentheses times itself. So they are the same. So both of these answers are legit here. We had a test question like this, and the first thing I told y'all to do was write it how many times? 2. So do you see how we're doing it all backwards? Math is so cool. Okay, so here's your homework. Is this page 5. Okay? This is like the front page. The rest is grouping. That's what we're working on for the rest of class. And the bathroom line can start, but that's what we're working on. Let's go.